Hello, I'm Simon Roderick from Fram Search. I'm joined today from Singapore by Nick Hungerford, who many of you will know very well as being the co-founder of the fintech Nutmeg. Nick, how are you and how's life in Singapore?
Life in Singapore is great. Thank you very much. We have a pretty normal life, I think, and spend our time worrying about you over there in the UK, Simon, but very fortunate here.
I think your experience of COVID has been perhaps very different than we've had in the UK. And you guys are out and about now, aren't you, in terms of, I think restaurants are open and things like that?
Yeah, no cases, I think, for 4 months or so. Actually, this week we did have one, but I think it's been well contained. So everyone's out and about, and well, except us, because I have an 11-week-old daughter. So I'm not going anywhere, which is both a humbling and novel experience for me.
Well, congratulations. That's great news.
Thanks.
Nick, we've known each other a very long time, and the world feels very different than when we first met. And one of those big differences, I think, is that in 2021, the concept of fintech and robo-advice all seemed very normal. But you set up Nutmeg in 2011. So where did the idea come from?
Yes, it definitely wasn't normal back then. I remember people saying that this will never work, and having to take lots of inspiration from other industries that had moved online that people never thought would be interactive. Dating being a good example. That no one thought that would work, but it was. I think now 1/3 of all marriages are created online, or something amazing. Probably more in COVID times. So the idea came from wanting to help my friends and people that I knew who were asking me for advice, having known that I'd been working in banking and wealth management beforehand, and knowing that whilst I wouldn't be able to help all of them with their individual circumstances, perhaps we could help find a wealth manager who could work with them. And then we were going to build this tech product, which was a matchmaking service for clients and wealth managers. But when we interviewed loads of wealth managers, I think about 75 or so, all the responses that we got from the wealth managers around who do you like looking after and what's your secret sauce were actually pretty similar. Who do we like looking after? Well, the richer the better. And how do we deal with our clients? What was the secret sauce? Well, at that time, it was a diversified core portfolio with some specialism on the side of maybe I know this industry very well, or I'm a specialist bond expert, or I know alternative assets very well. I know that asset management and wealth management have evolved since then, but that was pretty much how it worked in 2010. We buy some index products and then add some spice on the side. And so I thought, well, hang on a minute. If this is what's happening with wealth management, that certainly was my experience as well. Why don't we put it all online and allow customers the opportunity to experience the same quality of investment at a far lower price? And the only thing that's proven to improve performance is a lower cost. So it seemed pretty simple. When we took off, of course, it was terrifying because it took a long time to get the business rolling. But now Nutmeg is doing far better, and far better. Sorry, I should say, without me there. And is a sizable player, and I think fair to say the most recognized personal finance brand in the UK now.
Incredible, really, really good story. And as I say, I think perhaps sometimes people don't appreciate, what the environment was like at the time and how tech wasn't quite so much part of our lives. And what have you been up to since exiting Nutmeg?
Well, I'm the biggest cheerleader. This was not planned at all, but you can see I'm drinking from a Nutmeg tea mug today. I promise you that wasn't planned, and I promise you that not every mug I have in this house is a nut mug, as we call them. But I've been a venture capitalist, so I've been trying to find the next Nutmegs, and it's an amazing job. We go around and invest in companies and founders who are doing wonderful things. I specialize in fintech, so I look for people especially transforming the banking, insurance, wealth and asset management industries. And I don't think there's a greater privilege, actually. Being an operator is intensely hard work, and nothing will ever replace the emotions, high and low, that come with that. But being a venture capitalist, you really do get to live the successes and the failures with people, and you have to do your best to try and ensure that they know that it's not their fault. Sometimes it's about skill, sometimes it's about circumstance, sometimes, as we've seen through COVID, it's about luck. But it's a great job to be in, and we do our best to find great companies.
That's a really interesting perspective there about sometimes things are out of your control, and you just got to recognize that. So, having been a founder and now an investor, you must see good ideas all the time. What criteria are you looking for when you're investing?
I see ideas, Simon. Some of them are good, some of them are amazing, but I'd say some of them also, in my considered view, aren't that good. And that's part of the fun of being an investor, taking a contrarian position. It was great for me to read that Airbnb got rejected by 50 or so venture capitalists before someone gave them some money. The same thing happened, to me at Nutmeg, and I think part of what makes this market tick so well is that when you do find a founder, an opportunity you believe in, you have to push uphill, and partly there's the knowledge that lots of other people have said no, so you're going against the herd, and partly it's because the team, hopefully, that you're in are going to ask good questions and question your judgment and make sure that you've really done your homework on that opportunity. So it's not fair to say that every opportunity I see is a good one, but I do see an awful lot. I think last year we saw over 1,500 companies just in the fintech space. I see at least 2 or 3 a day that have come my way, and of course, deal flow breeds deal flow. So entrepreneurs pass you deals as they see them, and other entrepreneurs like running their ideas past other entrepreneurs. But we have to do a fair bit of hustle. You're no different in your business. Sometimes if you do generously agree to work with a startup, that you have to make that work for them, right? And hustle is a big part of what we do as well.
And do you see certain traits within founders? Versus the ones that are successful versus those that you're not quite sure about backing. Do you see inherent traits in people?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of a trick question this is, but because clearly I should be saying that all the things that make people successful is very akin to my personality. But I think you and anyone listening to this will know that there are definitely flaws in my personality that we wouldn't wish on anyone. I think a lot of work. Well, I know a lot of work goes into this, and over the last 18 months, we've done extensive studies at Portage about what it is that makes a successful founder, and our sister company Diagram's done a lot of the same. And sometimes it's things you would think are obvious, perseverance, persistence, ability to understand the quality of a business model, and sometimes it's things that you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't expect. And I think that there are many different flavors of founder. What definitely holds true is that founders who are successful tend to be able to zoom in and out from the detail to the long-term focus of the company pretty quickly. And that requires a certain amount of intellect, and it requires a certain amount of self-awareness. Founders that are good tend to be able to delegate without feeling too much like that they've lost control of their baby, but at the same time ask perceptive questions to ensure that everybody knows that they are on top of things, and they can attract great talent and good capital. Especially in fintech, where most companies need to raise lots of money to be successful. You can't back a founder who has a tough time raising money, and you can't back a founder who isn't going to attract people to their team. So it's an absolute must that they have a compelling vision, and that that people are going to be around them who are going to support them and lift them up to better things.
So as we know, the route to success, it's not always a straight line, is it? Sometimes it's a bit of a zigzag in many ways. If you could go back in time and give yourself some advice about starting a fintech, what would it be?
Well, it's a zigzag, but if you don't live the zigzags, then you don't get to learn, right, for next time. So in a way, when people ask me, okay, what would you change, I feel that that there's lots of things I would change if I wanted to sort of guarantee success, but I'm not sure that financial success, albeit I take the obligation to the shareholders very seriously, but personal financial success is as much of a well-rounded outcome as all the learnings that go into it, right? Because without the learnings, I wouldn't be hopefully a decent VC and all the rest of it. But to answer your question, what would I change? I think I would change my attitude to setting culture in the firm. Like, I was really firm with setting culture at the beginning, but I definitely let it lapse as time went on. A classic example of that is that the first 20 employees, everybody did financial services exams, and I think that gave everybody, whether it was a customer-facing person, operations person, a tech person, a marketing person, a really good understanding of the environment in which they were operating. And I wish we'd kept that. We dropped it. So, it was just the investment team who had obviously usually previously done all their qualifications. We used to write a thank you letter to every client that onboarded. And there were some good business cases made about how, the cost of stamps is increasingly expensive, and that's tough. Or some people didn't want to get, we started off with postcards and then had to go to envelopes because, 1 in every 1,000 would say, hey, you sent me a postcard and I didn't want my partner to know that I had any money to save in the first place.
Okay, wow.
So things like this, which are learnings, but I do wish we'd kept on writing thank you letters, because I feel that if everybody in the company writes 3 letters a day, you have an association with customers that it is deep. So culture would be one thing. Some of the hires we made were great, and I wish we'd kept them longer, and some of them weren't so great. And I wish I'd stood up for the values of the company sooner. So I've definitely taken that lesson away and try and help my companies with that. Timing wise, Nutmeg may have had an easier ride if we started 2 years later and we weren't the first. But equally, it's really fun being a pioneer. And there's a lot of situations where you're paving the way, right? And you're setting the rules and doing things for people that come after you. And I've enjoyed every conversation I've had with other robo founders along the way. Definitely would have taken care of myself personally. Both my co-founder and I have had health issues as a result, probably of stress from the work. And I think that you can, as a founder nowadays, there's much more awareness on both the physical and the mental issues that come with working the crazy hours that founders do. Look, if I wanted to maximize the financial outcome for myself, there would be a million things I could change. But if I wanted to maximize the life outcome for myself, I would say no matter whether success or failure or good or bad decisions, as a founder, you live them really viscerally. And part of the whole fun of being a founder is that no one can take those away from you. And so I would say to founders, don't try and change too much, live with as few regrets as possible, because, you've done it and very few people do it. And that's really what matters.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think when you start your own business, you kind of end up getting advice from all quarters. But actually, a lot of the times you're getting advice from those that haven't necessarily stepped into your shoes, and it's hard, I think, to work out what advice to take, and sometimes it's easy with hindsight, but sometimes these things are just good ideas at the time, but I think for founders, it's learning to understand that not every step you take will be the optimal step. It was just a good idea at the time, and I see that quite a lot with, say, the startups that we work with, which is really interesting. You mentioned about people and hiring, and obviously, no matter what sort of business you run, talent is everything. But the problem I think a lot of fintechs have, particularly in the early days, was that they can't often compete on basic salaries with, say, the investment banks or more traditional firms that are out there. So how can fintechs engage with talent more effectively to kind of get over that initial hurdle?
Yeah, I think in the last decade, so much has changed in the relationship between financial services and technology. When I was living in London and working in banking, the headlines on the Evening Standard when you go home at night would always be about banker bonuses, and we would obsess in the UK about how much people in financial services were earning. And I don't know what it's like over there now, but my guess, if it's anything like the States or Singapore, is that far more people talk about what Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg are worth than what bankers are worth. And I think that really gets into the psyche of young people, talented people. Like, okay, you can go and work for a basic salary that's pretty good at banks. You can go and work for a basic salary that's pretty good at large tech companies, right? But the only way that you're really going to get rich is through equity in a startup company. And for a long time, my mindset was risk is doing something. Risk is doing a bungee jump, or risk is starting a company, or whatever. But what I learned in California was that actually risk is not doing something. Right? Risk is regretting that you didn't do the bungee jump, or regretting that you didn't start the business. And I think that most smart people today understand that life is a long game. In my view, there won't be pensions, there won't be government pensions for people my age. The money will have run out, right? So you're not going to stop working when you're 65 or 75 or 80 unless you have significant personal capital. So actually, like, doing a fun job where you can meaningfully contribute in a culture that you really like for a chance of getting incredibly wealthy, it is not a bad trade-off. Right? Now, of course, that doesn't fit for everybody. And the world would be a poorer place if we didn't have great talent in fantastic financial institutions. And I think that they will always, as will great big tech companies and consultancies and the legal profession and other places where you earn lots of money. But I bet if you asked talented graduates now where they would want to work, right? Not necessarily where they're going to work, but where they'd want to work. A majority of them would choose a startup that has a vision they believe in, a culture that they can associate with, the appropriate and exciting commitment to the environment, to diversity, to allowing them to be the people they want to be, or they are. So I think that yes, it's hard for startups, but I think that it's harder to attract people, who are on the on the addiction of salary than it is for people who haven't got there yet. And even for those people who are on the addiction of salary, so many people are in households now when there's two partners who are working. And so many people have realized that there's more to life than, doing the same thing they've been doing for 20 years. So yeah, my view is it gets increasingly easier as long as you have a founder and leadership team who are great at hiring people and sharing their vision.
Some really good points there. Thank you for that. So obviously you're sitting in Singapore. Life feels fairly normal. The UK is on that path, I think, thank goodness, and the vaccine rollout has been a miracle. But of course, we've had this other thing in the background of Brexit. Where do you see London in a post-Brexit world, particularly in regard to fintech? It's been a leader for Europe with fintech. Do you see London continuing as that fintech capital?
I think the only way London doesn't continue as the fintech capital, if London decides to focus on complaining about Brexit and actually not moving forward and accepting it and adapting and, understanding that whilst it's not going to be the status quo, there are plenty of great things that can be done. Change is always an opportunity. And, it is funny having an outsider perspective because, I don't profess to have supported Brexit as the vote was happening. But now I certainly see how many opportunities it can bring. And it's really frustrating as a British person living abroad to see how slowly those opportunities are being taken and just how much complaining there is still going on about the fact that Brexit happened. And the reality is that it's happened and we can't change that, and we have to move forward. So, I think we need to step up and start. It's very funny actually, because you may be able to sort of stereotype other cultures into thinking that they could be sort of moping about. The British stereotype is stiff upper lip and get on with it, right? But we're really not acting like our stereotype in this case, I feel. And I think it's incredibly dangerous for future generations because now's the time, right? And I have a few ideas of solutions or things we should do, as does everyone at every dinner table in the country. But let's put our heads together and have some positivity around this. Let's not mope around and say, oh, well, gosh, it's happened. That's a disaster.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think, there will always be opportunities with change. I think London's got a fantastically diverse talent pool. It's a city of innovators, and I'm not just talking about London. Actually, obviously, there's a huge financial services community outside of London, but as an industry, and as an area that's hugely innovative. And so I feel very positive as well moving forward. Well, Nick, I want to thank you for your insight today. If there's one thing that I really just want to reiterate that you said that I really loved, is that risk is not doing something. I think that's a really great message. There's lots of people, I think, that are thinking about being entrepreneurial, that would maybe like to take their career in a different direction. And to hear somebody with your insights saying risk is not doing something, I think is a really positive message. So thank you for your time. Keep well, and look forward to speaking soon.
Thanks, Simon.